This is Spoilerin time. Now, don't be confused. Cordkillers is the name of the overarching enterprise, but it's also the name of the show where we talk about watching what you want, when you want, where you want, devices, streaming options, stuff like that. This is the show we get to do because we figured out how to watch what we wanted and watched it where we wanted. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is where we get to let our hair down. We get to get a little groovy in Spoilerin time.
Oh, man. I should have grown my hair out.
I got to grow some hair so I can let it down.
But one of the things we also check in on is our joint Night Attack Cordkillers Summer Movie Draft.
Let's do it. Rip it off like a Band-Aid.
Despite all reason and sense, from what I am told, Suicide Squad made $135 million, meaning this ain't over yet, Brian.
No. Look, I saw the script. The script is the movie's terrible, and therefore nobody's supposed to go see it, and you're supposed to die a quick and painless death. But instead, you go lurching forward like that one terrorist from the end of Die Hard, unstoppable killing machine coming ambling towards me like a zombie in the night.
Keep shooting me.
Yeah, dude.
I call this just for a bit on like why 135 million. First of all, critics often have different opinions than audience, and there is the Rotten Tomatoes differential. This worked for me with Pacific Rim in a previous movie draft. 26% Rotten Tomatoes score, but 72% user score.
Man, that's crazy.
So people are saying, I don't care what you critics say about whether I should like this. I've decided to like it anyway, and they went and paid. Now, the big question is, will the bad press around it cause a fall off in week 2? And you're still making money from Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah, and I think if we do eke out a win, it will be because of the staying power of Secret Life of Pets. I think there might be, between Ghostbusters and Secret Life of Pets, we may have as little as 20 million left in the tank. But Jason, let's see, is Star Trek Beyond done making money, do you think?
No, but it's not going to make a ton of money. It is still in the theaters, and it's in multiple theaters, so it'll pull in some.
Okay.
I don't know that it gets past like 150 though.
So right now we have a $137 million lead over you. So
we've got 4 weeks left.
Oh my God, Tom, I don't know. It's going to be down to the wire. I'm going to say that we're going to end within $10 million of each other. I'm going to bet that it is that close.
Oh my gosh. This is crazy. Now, the worst part about the timing of this is the last weekend, the season end date is Labor Day weekend, where we won't have a Cordkiller show. So we won't actually celebrate whatever happens until later. Maybe we'll get on the phone though and record something.
Okay.
On September 2nd, because
we could do that.
Because this is gonna be a nail biter. Basically, I have to make up $34 million a week on Team Night Attack every week between now and the end.
I think you can. I think you're going to make up 100.
I think I can, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion.
No, I agree. Look, to me, the big surprise is yet again we have a nonstop streak since the beginning of the draft in the Chat Realm League. One winner. It's always one winner, and that blows me away. There's never a tie, never a whole bunch of people doing the same slate. One person, one slate. Right now it looks like Daniel, Dannil, is going to be the winner. He's sitting at $1.6 billion on his picks. He had Batman vs. Superman, The Jungle Book, Keanu, Mother's Day, Captain America, Civil War, Legend of Tarzan, and The Secret Life of Pets. Congratulations, Daniel. I don't see any way for anyone else to come ahead of him now.
Yeah, Daniel, you are a boon to the draft. Thank you for your participation. We are going to finish up today's Spoilerin time with Justified. We'll spoil Mr. Robot Episode 5, Season 2. But let's start things off by talking about the full season of Netflix's Stranger Things. And we'll kick it off with an email from the lesser-known Kevin from Tech TV, who wrote, regarding Stranger Things episode, regarding episode 131, Stranger Things, you guys seem to be negative about Winona Ryder. In my opinion, I think Ryder did a decent job because the impression I was given is she had possible drug or mental issues before. This was not your stereotypical housewife. This was a woman who had issues in the past, and thus why the husband left her. Maybe I'm influenced by the fact that I had known a woman not far off from what we see in Stranger Things. Will she win an Emmy for this? No. Did she do a bad job? Not in my opinion.
Well, and I don't think we said she did a bad job. I just felt like her performance, whether or not it's the way people who had former drug problems actually act is immaterial. What matters is, did they communicate that to me and bring me along for the ride as I was watching the program? And they did not. It was, I found it distracting and a little over the top, and yet as we're going to talk about in Spoilerin, talking about Stranger Things, how I felt about different characters really evolved over the is it 8 episodes or 10 episodes?
Yeah, that's 8 episodes.
Over the 8 episodes. Yeah. I mean, I started off hating the police chief. I thought he was the weakest character in the bunch. Ended up, he's the rock star hero of the group, man. He's the most interesting, impressive character in the whole shooting match.
No, man, Chief was the one character I did not like in the first episode, and not because I didn't like him. I just felt he stuck out. I'm like, he does not seem 80s to me. He doesn't seem to fit in this story, and I would, like you, totally turned around on him by the end. By the end, I felt like he was the perfect man for this story. On the other hand, for me, those last 2 or 3 episodes really felt like I was just waiting for it to end. I didn't feel like they kept their momentum all the way through for me. I just kind of wanted them to get to the monster.
Oh,
and it started to drag.
I disagree. It's I feel like we had 5 episodes of preamble and foreshadowing and hints and whatever. And much like keep in mind this is coming from a guy who liked the way Lost ended. When you get to a place where it's like,
which I did too. So that's the same.
Well, when you get to a place where it's like, fine, you know all the rules now. We can stop being a horror movie and foreshadowing, and now we could be an action movie. And they did that, and they did it pretty well. And by that point, I didn't really even mind the limitations of their budget. I mean, it was a fairly obviously CGI'd monster, and then they stopped hiding him in shadows. They just showed him for what he was, and it almost, if I squinted, might look a little Sharknado-ish to me. But by that point, I had bought into the entire premise, to the characters, to the kids, to the acting. I did love, once I got to the end, I understood why everybody was saying, oh man, so many inside jokes, references or whatever, like, using the wrist rocket to fire off pebbles at the monsters was very obviously an homage to it. And that moment when he hits and then the monster flies back or whatever, and of course it turns out to be 11, not having anything to do with the pebble he was flicking. Loved all of that. Thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I still really enjoyed the characters. I absolutely adore 11, and I want to see more from the kids. I felt like once we got to the adventure, that I just felt like it should have been faster. I felt like they spent too many times like, oh, we're going to go down to the lake. Oh, we're not going to go down to the lake. Oh, we're going to go to the well. Oh, it was just 1 or 2 more beats than I needed personally. But I didn't mind the way it was wrapped up, or not wrapped up, as the case may be. And I was so invested in these kids by that point that I just want to see more from them.
Man, I gotta tell you, I disagree. Like, I dug the whole setting up the Rube Goldberg trap, and I don't know. Like, once they were done explaining rules, because you notice once we hit that point, it's like it's just an action movie at that point forward. It's like, oh yeah, well, we need an isolation tank here. How do we build one? We're building one. Oh, we built the MacGuffin just in time to do the thing, and now we're over there. And we know what her powers, because we don't see any new powers come out of her for the last 4 episodes.
Right.
Yeah, I dug it a lot. There was well, I'm gonna hold off on it. Well, actually, yeah, I'll share this. I don't know how fully developed the theory is, but I was talking to a friend of mine, Brent Braun, a very talented magician, and he was saying that he's convinced, he's going to rewatch it through this lens, but he's convinced that the adventure that we watch could be the adventure being played out by children visiting their friend Will, who's dying of cancer. And 11 is the girl in the room next door who pipes up and joins in while Will is laying there dying. Which
hence the shaved head.
Correct, right? And then also the chief is the dad of Will or in some sideways type thing.
Okay.
I don't know, but I thought that was an interesting idea.
I mean, I think it's a stretch to literally think the movie is that.
Right.
But it is certainly a metaphorical superstructure, right? Like I see where that goes. And in a way, that's not a problem. That's a cool filter to try to look at it through, because once you started saying that to me, I'm like, oh yeah, so many things fall into place there. Maybe making the chief the dad starts to stretch it too much, but forget about it. Let me look at it through the lens and see what I can see, because that's really interesting.
Well, and by the way, Perfect Face for Radio says, so they're Saint Elsewhere-ing us? No, Saint Elsewhere very obviously, objectively stated, no, the show was a fantasy in a kid's mind. They will never do that on this. But if you look at it through that lens, you might see how everything falls into place that way.
I mean, it's a little bit seeing patterns in clouds, but I love seeing patterns in clouds. It's fun.
Yeah,
why not?
Sure, right? Yeah.
All right. Speaking of patterns, Mr. Robot, episode 5, season 2. I have been enjoying this season as a departure from last season, and I'll give you a little insight to that in a bit, because I was watching my wife rewatch season 1, and this episode seemed like it turned back towards the hacking. Obviously, because Elliot gets to sit down at a terminal, and we see a lot of code, but it's turning back towards season 1 in a way, saying, all right, we're going to go back to telling a hacker's story, but we're no longer telling the story of a plausible group of computer hackers working out of an abandoned building. We are telling a post-apocalyptic fantasy that now has hackers worked into it very naturally.
Yeah, I wish that they had just made a cleaner break. I think it's at this point, it is really struggling to keep themes and elements from season 1 forefront in my mind, while also setting up a brand new set of rules and difficulties. Yeah, I get that the FBI are trying to track down our merry gang of hackers, but I don't. I'm confused. I'm strangely watching the previously on left me like, oh wait, no. What? Who did that again? And why are they reminding me of that? Is that going to be important? I kind of wish there was a stronger break between season 1 and season 2. I don't like this crossover. Season 2 could just be 2 stories, just 2 stories. The FBI is trying to close in on our gang, and meanwhile, Elliot's sister is being a general, like literally dressed as a general in this episode, in this hacker war, being consumed by hate. Second is this element of Elliot steps into the Silk Road, whoopsie doodle, doesn't like what he sees, a little bit trapped by where he's at now. I don't need any other crossover, any other holdover from the old stuff, because the characters, I love our FBI chick that we're following. Dom, her name is that right? I love Dom. I love seeing the dude from The Office as the friendliest Dread Pirate Roberts you'd ever see. I don't need any of that other stuff.
What's the other stuff?
Portia Doubleday, his childhood friend, and she's a bad guy, now she's a good guy, now she's covering her ass for the FBI or whatever. Like, I don't need to see any of that. I'm not getting anything out of anything.
Oh,
she's
Angela.
Doing. Yeah.
Is Portia Doubleday the actor's name?
Yeah.
That's what threw me off. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. You don't need so it sounds like because really those are the only 3 stories, right? Am I missing one?
Well, they keep playing.
And I think it's very telling that I couldn't remember that Angela was the other story. That I had to ask you that, but yeah.
Well, no. We got her hanging on like this vestigial form that doesn't really do anything except for worm one way or the other and worry a lot. And then we also have Mr. Crazy Time Hacker Crossdresser, who still is a vestigial thing. Like I think
he's a shadow character though. Like he is part of Dom's story.
I mean, yeah.
He is there because he's in the background of both sides of this conflict. So he's just going to come up when she engages or anybody else engages with that side, the way he did for Elliot. He wasn't in the show a lot.
Well, and also we got the holdover of like Steel Mountain rebranding itself as Steel Valley, and it's like, why are we still worried about?
I just ignored that. Like, I'm totally with you there. Like, I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's too much noise for my taste this season. Okay. I would prefer more signal.
because one of the things I liked about the first few episodes was that it was kind of a soothing white noise. I liked that we weren't connecting to season 1, that Elliot was like, he wasn't at a terminal and things were different. And so I could see why that would become, if that's even bothering you in those first few episodes, that becomes a big problem in this episode where we still have the noise, but we also brought back in the elements. Watching Eileen watch a bunch of season 1, I felt like I was watching an entirely different show though.
Yeah, well, and I feel that same way too. Because one last thing.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the most unforgivable vestigial appendage that's just hanging out there is Mr. Robot himself. He's done nothing. He's been literally useless.
But he's Elliot's inner demon.
No,
right?
but that's fine. But at least let him do some inner demon shit.
He
not just sit there whining.
See, I disagree with you on that one. I think he has been the thing that Elliot is fighting against this whole time.
He's got no teeth. We've watched him shoot Elliot in the head with no repercussions, nothing. Like I'm not scared of him. He's ghost.
Well, maybe they made a bad choice for you in hiding what he's done, but he has done things. We just didn't get to see them because we're only getting to see the Elliot POV still.
I mean, it's like, make him a credible threat then. To like literally halfway through the season, do one thing, make me feel like I should be afraid of him.
Mr. Robot is the one that called Dude from the Office. Mr. Robot is the one that went out for half a day and did a bunch of stuff.
I mean,
it is interesting that they're not letting us see that because we got to see it in season 1.
Well,
there are several scenes where Mr. Robot gets in a car and meets with a person and talks at a point where we don't know who he is, so we don't think anything strange about it. But seeing it just when Eileen was rewatching it, I was like, oh, wow, yeah. So that's Elliot in that car.
Well, and that's what my point is. Like, let's see him step forward and be like, all right, I'm done with this horse crap. And he just takes over. And then we see a whole episode of just Christian Slater kicking ass, occupying Elliot's body. How great would that be?
But what I do love the FBI investigation. I love Elliot's struggle. And I think this season makes season 1 look like less of a show. That was what I was going to say about watching Eileen watch this. I'm like, oh, this show was just plausible. This show was just about hackers, is what it feels like now in retrospect. I didn't feel that way at the time, but I feel like the show has become so much of a science fiction show now. And it's less, the season 1 felt like, sort of a drama of like, hey, these are all real things that real hackers do and might try to pull off. From the moment they actually do execute the hack, though, it becomes a sci-fi thing and becomes way more fantastical.
Yeah, I think I don't like it. I think I don't like that.
I was wondering about, like, maybe that's your problem is we're no longer in the drama that's plausible anymore.
Well, yeah, it's becoming a cartoon, and it didn't have to, right? All the main plot points we're seeing could work, but the problem is like I'm seeing Elliot's sister prepare for war, but I don't know against what. Like just shouting, barking commands, and you're promoted,
it's
and
against the
fight those front lines. Well, that's fine. Give me something concrete to understand and bite onto. Like, I want to be on somebody's side, but when nobody says anything that makes sense, that's not cryptic horse crap, there are no sides. There are no sides for me to latch onto at this point.
Well, and that's what Angela's story is partly is supposed to give you, right? She is the worm inside of E-Corp and seeing their side of the battle. And the Chinese guy that you saw with Dom is another part of that battle. So I'm curious if we get more from them that will satisfy you in the future.
Also, are we ever going to find out what it means to hack time? Was that just a cool phrase that he said that never has to pay off?
I don't even remember that. I thought that was just meant like a life hack where he...
Well, he says, you hack computers, I hack time. And that phrase was apparently so important that they did it on this week's Previously On. But I guess they only did that to set up the fact that he has a lot of clocks.
Last season, he did that whole thing where, like, I divide my day up very closely. I'll allocate. I think that's all he meant. There's nothing more to it than he is a person who very carefully manages time. He hacks it to make it work for him. I don't think there's anything sci-fi about it.
Give me a badass 3-minute long day in the life of where we see him switch.
God, no, that's
like no. Like, that could be really freaking cool. Watching him wildly switch characters moment by moment because he so carefully plans his time. Or do something besides just have him sit there and have a lot of clocks around him.
Now I think you're just throwing poop.
No, what do you mean?
That's because that was a throwaway line for a guy who manages time.
Okay,
Like, that's
it
just a
can't
natural
be.
thing to say.
If it is a throwaway line, then you don't get to keep coming back to it and using it in the previously on thing. You can't introduce him as the guy who hacks time and never have him hack time.
But no, it's not literally hacking time.
Okay, literally,
it's not like changing the space-time continuum. It's time management.
Okay,
he hacks
then
time
why
management,
do
which
they
would be a
keep,
really dull way to say it?
Why do they keep going back and showing it in the previously on as if it's very important?
Maybe you'll end up being right, and I'll eat my words. But I think it's just that here's a guy who's super obsessed with time management, and at some point, his management over time is going to get thrown off, and we're going to be like,
name two times we've seen him super obsessed with time management. Because I know I can only name one. There's only one time.
2 times we've seen him.
No.
Well, okay, we've seen
we
him
haven't
3
being
times,
obsessed with clocks. That's not being obsessed with time
management. When he met with Elliot, he said, I manage my time very carefully. I only do this amount. You only have this. You can have 10 minutes to talk.
Great. So he's Tim Ferriss. So what? I mean, it's like, I don't.
That's all. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's all it is. You're trying to make it into more than I think it's supposed to be.
No. Okay. I am trying to respond to the cues that are being presented to me. When something shows up in previously on, it's because it's important. And I'm trying to figure out, if this is important, why is it important? And why are you not showing me anything remotely resembling being important? And if it's not important, why do you keep giving it to me in the previously ons?
It's an ingenious point.
Oh, all right.
I don't know. Maybe you'll be right. Maybe you'll end up like
No, I don't think I'll be right. I think they're not going to do anything with it, and I think they're wasting my time, and that's pushing me away from the show. Like, don't waste my time. I manage my time very importantly.
I think you hack time.
All right.
The way I think that they mean.
I think the hack is in the writing in this season of Mr. Robot. That's right. I said it.
Right. Fair enough. Let's move on to something that is justified, which is Justified. Episode 4 of season 3. I don't remember much about this, and I watched it yesterday.
I watched halfway through it, then paused to watch Mr. Robot, and I was kind of glad to get back to Justified after this week's Mr. Robot. We didn't see the needle move a lot. Probably the highlights for me were seeing Frank talk with Loretta. And, Raylan's asking how she's doing. You still slinging weed? And she's like, well, no, more heroin and cocaine these days. And just this unapologetic, like, yeah, no, I'm broken and this is what I'm going to do with my life while I'm babysitting. We saw the haphazard adventures of Dickie and Dummer.
Doyle.
Yeah. It might have been cool to see these prison correctional officers running a legitimate I'm saying legitimate, like a credible criminal enterprise, but didn't much see it. I don't really get what Dickie was saying when he's like, there's supposed to be a bunch of money here. I'm kicking it back to you. I'll come back when there's more money there. And they're all like, no, there's not. I don't. Money doesn't.
Their reaction to Dickie was also my reaction to Dickie, which is like, oh, okay.
Right? Where it's just like, money are not frogs. You don't get to. Yeah. They're not going to multiply.
I sort of get, like, he was saying you need to invest it and make a return, but I didn't get the idea that Limehouse did that.
Yeah, really, or that Limehouse really thought Dickie Bennett would be alive another 48 hours. You know?
Limehouse is like, no, I'm not your broker, dude.
Raylan, strangely, not the hero of this episode. I mean, he was a minor player in the whole thing. I did think it was interesting when it came down to that drawdown moment that he just hit the gas and ran the dude over twice.
That was good because you're always expecting him to draw at this point.
Well, yeah, that's his superpower, right?
Right.
He has to shout his clobber in time.
And they did it twice where they're like, oh, he's not going to draw. He's just going to run him over. Like, oh, he's going to shoot him this time. Nope. Just going to reverse.
Yeah, that was a little bit hard for me to watch, having watched a dude get run over last year. That was rough, but whatevs.
No, I could see that. Like it was a little squeamish especially when he went in reverse. Like there's something about when it was coming at him and he could see it and he could jump on the hood that didn't bother me as much as when he was on the ground and he went in reverse.
Yeah.
But that aside, this was also Boyd Crowder consolidating his empire and flushing out a traitor, which is setting him up to be a credible threat to Smiling Guy.
Did you get the intent? Did you get the idea that he intentionally paid real low wages just to test him, or it looked to me like he just got frustrated and picked the wrong guy to confide in? You know, when he talked to the wheelchair dude.
Yeah, I think so. Like I didn't get the sense that the low wages was some kind of test, but I did get the sense that Boyd was smart enough. Is it Jerry? Is that the name of the guy in the wheelchair?
Yeah, I don't know.
But he was smart enough to make sure that they were tight, because remember in the previously on, they show Boyd saying, "No, I have to be sure I can trust you," and so he didn't. That basically means like he didn't trust him still, and so he went to the guy that he does trust, who's family, and was like, let me know. And that was what I assumed happened behind the scenes is wheelchair guy came to Boyd and said, guess what? He's going to try to F you over.
Yeah. But even then it wasn't like a real powerful thing. I did continue to enjoy seeing Blondie Von Taxi Driver as a credible villain. He did get a little bit over the top, but within realms of what I would believe. As he's trying to recruit people into, moving into, I guess, secretly, that holler is like the richest gold mine in the world. Like that's where criminals want to come take over.
Detroit's fine, but let me tell you,
where the money
is
in the backwood hills.
Yeah, is in the hills of Kentucky. I don't care what people say. I think Smilin' Von Taxi Driver is a great name for a villain, and you should not throw stones at him. He does get a little over the top, which is why he's really good on Arrow as the like possessed magic villain. He's a little bit less believable for me, and maybe I'm colored by that. As the cool Detroit villain, but he is so, I don't know. There is something very villainous about him naturally that I love watching him work, and so I am now excited about Boyd Crowder having thwarted him to see what he comes back with.
So side thing, and I know this probably bothers exactly no one but me, but we went out and shopped for 3 days in some of those California hills for hacking the system, right? And it was on a lot where they shoot a bunch of other stuff too, right?
What do you mean those California hills? This is all taking place in Kentucky.
Well,
right?
That's the problem, right? Is I look and I'm like, I've been there. That may be literally where we shot segments of hacking the system.
No. There was, and I live here, right? And
right.
So there was. It's funny that you say that because there was one scene in this episode for the first time that I looked at and go, that's California for sure. Well, and in season 1, even though it was shot here, I love that they found locations that really felt Kentucky to me. And this was the first time that I was taken out of that too.
Well, and now that I kind of know that, and plus maybe it's the introduction of Blondie Von Taxi Driver, like it just feels like California, like from beginning to end. Nothing about it's just Southern drawl in California land.
Yeah, it does. I hope maybe I can get over that next time. I hope I can.
I mean, it's fine, but it's like it just I've stopped feeling or even thinking of it as Kentucky. It's just all in California, and that's fine.
It's Little Kentucky. It's a neighborhood in downtown LA. They call it Harlan County.
All right, I like it. Little Kentucky.
Yeah. It's ethnically. They have chicken there? fried chicken. So there you go. Justified. I don't mean to trash this episode. It was fine. It was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But I'm very much looking forward to Blondie Von Taxi Driver's inevitable showdown with Raylan and Boyd in some kind of triangular showdown, Mexican standoff type thing. Well, that's it for Spoilerin' Time. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening, and we will spoil you next time.
Bye.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.